Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining. It's lovely to see you all and to be here with you again. And in a smallish group, which I was just saying before we started the recording, that might mean that we can do a little bit more discussion and question and answer. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Alice, as I always do, for all the work she puts into this group and into Rays of Healing. And I know many of you do. But I'd like to also single out Donna for all her efforts in the background. Without that, none of this would ever happen. So I just like to acknowledge and say thank you. But honestly, thank you for coming. So I was thinking when Alice asked me if I'd like to do another talk, I had to think, well, what do I want to talk about? For those who don't know me, I'm very interested in, I just realized somebody's sitting behind Michelle there. Hello. You snuck in.
Matt.
I know. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mary Jane?
Well, thank you. Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Now, as you know, I'm hopeless in getting sidetracked when I'm talking, so I'll endeavor to stay on track a little bit. I was thinking of what would be timely to talk about. And what I was saying is, for those who don't know me, my sort of main interest is the expansion of human consciousness, or another way of saying that would be the ascension process. Another way of saying that would be humanity regaining its proper place in the cosmos, connecting with its innate creative capacity and its responsibility, in fact, to create in this realm and really to create our way out of the mess this planet has been in for a very long time, as evidenced by the outer reality at the moment. So I was hoping to sort of say something encouraging about that on the one hand, and I remembered that this year is the 30th anniversary of when I had a spontaneous psychic awakening, for want of a better way of describing it. And it was a Sunday afternoon. At that point in time, I lived in Australia, and I was working very hard in a job, Monday to Friday. And Sunday was often my one day to kind of relax and focus on what I wanted to focus on. And most often that would be reading a spiritual book or watching a spiritual film. And in those days, it was still when we'd go around the corner and get a video from the video store, talk about a shift in consciousness from that. And I was sitting on the edge of my coffee table watching this video about psychic phenomena. And it was, now this will, if your age will be shown, if you know who I'm going to mention, the narrator or the host of the particular video was Telly Savalas. Who knows who that is? Basically an actor from very masculine kind of old 50s and 60s movies, not the sort of person you would expect to be narrating a spiritual video. But I was absolutely transfixed, because they had different people who had different unusual skills. I remember a blind man painting paintings like Picasso, just really extraordinary things. And suddenly, as I was very focused, the only way I can explain it is it's like my crown chakra just blew open. And it almost felt like, well, I didn't see white light. I didn't see with my eyes anything, but I felt this energy coming down into my body, right down through me. And it was the most magnificent energy that made me, well, I remember I started laughing, because for years, having questioned reality, is there life after death? I was vacillating. I had been brought up Catholic, but there was so much contradiction in that material that I'd been pushed away from it, and really had become agnostic, but was very much questioning the nature of reality. And in that moment, when this consciousness flooded into my body, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was more. And it was life-changing. If I had not experienced it, I wouldn't have believed it. Meaning, I feel very grateful that because I am quite analytical, I got to experience it without a shadow of a doubt. And from that point on, it changed my life. Now, I will say that it wasn't as though I maintained that level. When you have an activation like that, it's exactly that, an activation. And then you need to integrate the energy. And so after that, I started exploring even more. But the strange thing that happened is that I started speaking and writing in rhyme. And those of you who know me I have shared many of my rhymes from over the years. So this goes back to 1993. And that was another very tangible sign that it wasn't just me. I knew that I couldn't be doing that purely on my own. I could feel that my brain was being used almost like a computer sometimes the words were in there, but it wasn't coming purely from me. It was very much a merge. And I want to say that I know a lot of people feel very dubious about channeling or cautious about channeling. And I've come to realize over the years, I think most of us are channeling our own higher selves, and through that connecting to other energy. And I think so long as you consider the quality of the energy and the quality of the message, and that you set and hold boundaries, same as you're not going to let somebody come in your front door that you don't know. I think the same advice is apt, even in a channeling sense. But this energy was so pure, so loving. I was just overwhelmed by the sense of love, the sense of upliftment, the sense of expansion. And so that is really what set me off on my journey ever since. I mean, quite soon after that, I started getting premonitions. I started talking to the dead, in inverted commas. I had that whole experience where you would, go to a restaurant and think, oh no, you don't really mean I've got to go and accost that person and tell them this thing that you're telling me. But because I trusted the information that I was getting, I acted upon it. And I've never not had a lovely experience when I've gently said to somebody, I'm one of those people that get messages. Would you be interested in hearing? And obviously they were only ever positive things, comforting things, So anyway, so what I want to make clear, though, in even talking about this with you, is the information that I was given at that time and since makes me know that this, having expanded consciousness, having all of these experiences, which I know most of you have in your own way, whether it's through healing or psychic information or lots of different ways. To me, this is not a gift. It's a birthright. And what I was told was that the world was going to be changing in my lifetime, that the way the world had worked wasn't working. It was an experiment of sorts and had come to a conclusion, and it was time for the change to happen, and that was inevitable. I think I said recently, it's just like the weather. You can't actually stop winter coming, after fall. You can't stop the leaves from falling after summer. Well, in the bigger picture, it's no different. And we're moving into a new age, or a new energy, I would say a new level of consciousness, where the old way won't stand. And so part of why I wanted to bring this into the conversation tonight is knowing that the outer reality at the moment is getting increasingly scary and strange, but wanting to say that I believe it's like a difficult childbirth. We're birthing ourselves into a new reality, and we have a certain level of autonomy in how we experience what happens. And more than that, I believe if you're interested in this kind of material, we actually incarnated for the purpose of facilitating the planet through this change. I've often talked about the idea of volunteer souls. If you're familiar with Dolores Cannon's work, the idea of volunteer souls, I was told about volunteer souls, in the mid-90s. The idea that we came here to assist the planet, to assist the consciousness in shifting. And on one level, that is by transducing the energy that is flooding the planet, acting like a transducer to transduce is the word, to transduce that energy into the planet so that it can be assimilated. Another metaphor is to act like an internet hotspot of energy, so that because we step that energy down, whether it's doing it through our Reiki healing, or whether it's just by going about our lives, many of us, have a network of people around us, and we can, in many senses, help ground that network, help stabilize that energy. And we're doing it without even realizing that we are doing it. And you can do it from your own living room. You don't actually have to be out in the world doing it, even though some of us are called to be more out in the world than others. So this was the beginning for me. And I suppose the overarching message that I want to leave you with tonight is that, and I think probably most of you already have figured this out for yourselves anyway, but I guess I just figure any opportunity I have to reiterate it and to get a discussion going about it, the better. That the old world is breaking down. We can see it happening, and that is a necessary part of the new world coming into being. Unfortunately, from my point of view, humanity generally has been acculturated into focusing on the past and into being limited in its capacity to exercise its consciousness. And to me, that goes against everything human beings were created and designed to be. And it's so easy, really, to fall into the trap of responding to what is, as opposed to envisioning and imagining what is possible. But the more we look back, the more we're triggered by what's happening now to think it's a repetition, it's World War III, it's whatever. The more we're drawn into conflict, the more our consciousness is dragged down. And ultimately, that is a choice that we can only make on an individual level. But it's helpful at times when we come together like this to remind ourselves that we're not alone. And obviously, I mean that in a human sense, but I also mean that in an extraordinary sense of the true breadth of what consciousness really is. And not, I mean, I like to think of, a seed has a level of consciousness, an ant has a level of consciousness, all the way up into the planets and the cosmos. And I generally describe it like Russian dolls nested. It's really your choice as to where you put your focus, as might be appropriate. When you're healing, it might be appropriate to shift down into the cellular level, or to expand out into more of a cosmic level. But I just know that in our lifetimes we are going to consciously experience more and more and more of the true reality of what consciousness is, what reality can be. And I think one of the hardest things to do when you sort of get dropped into this planet as a little being is remember who you are, reclaim that power, and know that not only is it our joy, our love, but our responsibility to channel in. I often talk about, you know, being a finger of God. We literally, as a being, are a finger of God in this realm, and we can, through our light body, however you want to think about that, we can facilitate higher level consciousness, merging with ourselves for our own betterment, but also channeling that into the planet to assist in raising the planet. But I think it's really helpful to have support for doing that, because it's so easy to forget, it's so easy to get distracted by the outer reality. And I often think of, you know, the idea of Lot's wife and not looking back. We have to resist the impulse to look back, to think the thoughts that we've been encouraged to think by the way the world is, but to realize that the way the world is has been created in the past, and the way the world is going to be is being created now. So that may seem pretty basic to you, I don't know, but I just feel the call to reiterate it as much as I can. So I was thinking of a couple of metaphors that I was given for this idea of getting back to the future, because here, in order to keep humanity under control, to limit our creative power and sovereignty, things have occurred, which I'm not going to try and enumerate, but there have been control agendas on many levels of this planet. And part of what is happening, or part of how we are going to create the new reality, as we are doing and have been doing for years, is to break through these barriers. And energetically at this point, it's like the prison gates are open, but unless we walk through them, unless we realize and start thinking differently, imagining differently, I think as a humanity, we've pretty much been taught to consider what's not possible, to consider what we shouldn't be doing, to consider being in our place. And it's almost like we have to have the chutzpah to get out of our place, but also just to experiment. I think the best way to expand our consciousness is simply to experiment. What happens if I think this over a period of time? What happens if I feel this way, if I put on music or watch inspiring videos or do various things to put myself into this kind of a vibration? What happens if I use my loved ones, you know, new babies, grandchildren, people we care about, to get into an incredibly heart-based place and just stay there? And do it as a service, do it as a gift to ourselves. I mean, I know we all do it to a certain degree, but I think we could be a bit more intentional, I guess, is what I'm saying, about some of these things. And part of that is resisting, you know, beating ourselves up. We've got to be as kind to ourselves as we're endeavoring to be to others. And the rewards, I think, are significant, with even on the small level, but also in the broader picture. So just to give you a couple of ideas, one of the metaphors that I was given for getting back to the future is this idea. If you imagine, now hang on, I've just got to clarify which I'm going to go first with here, and I'm getting some information which is taking me off course. Sorry, I'm just checking in. All right, thank you for that. Sorry. One metaphor was, and I imagine this happened in the US and Canada, but in Australia post-war, a lot of migrants went to Australia from places like Turkey and Greece and Italy, and they maintained the life that they knew from the 1950s when they moved, and they were in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and their children had a very hard time with their parents kind of being stuck in time. And this is a metaphor for what's happened to humanity. We've kind of been stuck in time, going around the same loop-de-loop. And so we need to make quite a leap. It's a leap in consciousness to actually sort of get back to the level that the rest of the cosmos has been in all along. Another metaphor I was given was the idea of people falling down into a cavern and getting stuck there and being there for so long that they forgot that that wasn't where they were meant to be. And people above trying to throw down ropes and throw down messages to tell them how they need to climb up out of there. But because they are so used to being stuck down there, and their new generations have never known anything else but being stuck down there, it actually requires more people to go down there to try and help the people climb out from the inside. And so that's really what many of us have done. We've come in to try and wake people up and say, hello, this isn't the way it's meant to be. It is possible for it to be different, but your reality very much depends on, as we all know, it's obvious, what you believe, what you perceive, what you think, how you feel. But it is possible to break through those barriers if you intend to, if you set out plans to. And often the best time to do that kind of thing is when you are facing some kind of difficulty, where the motivation is very strong to think differently, to be more positive, to try new things. And on that level, I want to recommend the work of Joe Dispenza, which you may or may not know. There's a lot of very nice and inspirational YouTube videos on on YouTube on a Joe. If you just search Joe Dispenza and maybe testimonials, a lot of people offer testimonials of how they have healed themselves of quite dire things often, through his work of literally shifting your consciousness so that you effectively shift into a different reality, such that whatever physical, it might be physical ailments, it might be circumstances, your reality literally changes. And I have seen this often in the work that I do with people. So let me just check in with where I was going to go with that next. I suppose the short story is I'm wanting to remind you and encourage you that if the outer reality starts getting more bizarre and more scary, that we are here to rise above it. And interestingly, who knows what forums like this one may serve in that circumstance, if it comes to that. But I am grateful that I have the confidence to know that it's going to work out. And the degree to how scary it is going to be up to each one of us in terms of how we respond, and whether we get dragged down into the heavier energies, or whether we can use the tools we're learning in situations like tonight to rise above and to help others rise above. And I hope there's a comfort in knowing that purely by being around loved ones, being around networks of people who might not have the information that we have, you can have an impact. You don't even have to speak to somebody to have an impact in grounding energy, helping to clear energy. And I think because so many of you are Reiki healers, you would already know that. So I hope it doesn't sound like I'm just preaching to the converted in this. But I also think, we also need the reminders. We also need the network connections. I often say, when we look at each other, even in a Zoom call like this, many of us have incarnated in other times and places. We might have connections to Egypt and Machu Picchu and all of these places that we often feel a connection to. And so when we connect, it's like we share and activate each other in the memories of those times. And that all of those things help us raise our level of consciousness. So does anybody want to chime in with any kind of thoughts of your own, or experiences, or questions, or anything? You don't have to. I just thought I'd offer.
I could say a little something.
Thank you, Michelle.
Sure. So, let's see, how do I put it? You're such an eloquent speaker, first of all, but
Thank you.
When there are things such as retrogrades, or the eclipse, or solar flares, or a variety of things, right? It can really shift us, I think, into an aspect that maybe we're like questioning, where are we? What's happening? I don't feel like I'm in my body, or I don't feel like I'm myself. So I wondered if you had a perspective on that, Mary Jane.
Absolutely. I'd like to speak, number one, about the astrology, but to me, I'll come back to that. If I forget, you can remind me. But the first thing I would like to say is the ascension process is by nature destabilizing, confusing. When you're going through the heat of the ascension process, often all you can do is go and sleep, and that is normal. The ascension process is so complex and so simple, really, in the sense that you're clearing your vibration, you're clearing your emotions, you're clearing your mental capacity in terms of, I think I've often said, there's a rhyme that I have that talks about claiming what belongs to you and returning what doesn't to where it's due. So very often when you're clearing and raising your vibration, belief systems that you inherited from your parents, for example, that actually aren't yours and don't service you anymore, they've got to literally be burned off. Or maybe another way of saying that would be, you literally raise your vibration out of them and leave them behind. A lot of the DNA memory of your lineage has to be transmuted. And it has to be transmuted for you personally to raise your consciousness. But with the volunteer idea, you've come in for the purpose of doing that, because when you do that, you set a template that allows and sets a pathway template for other people to do the same. So on so many levels, you know, I don't know if you've ever searched ascension symptoms on Google, but the list is extraordinary. And rather than thinking there's something wrong with you, I would encourage you to think, I'm having a consciousness shift. Great. How can I serve myself in this moment? Excuse me. I often cough for emphasis, I notice, on an important point. How can I serve myself in this? Is the best thing I can do is just go to bed, have a good night's sleep, and when I wake up in the morning, I'll feel refreshed. Often that's the answer. If you've ever listened to a high consciousness podcast or talk or whatever, very often you'll get sleepy. And the reason is, like, even in my talking to you, energy is coming through to you and potentially activating. We're doing it with each other. It's not just me. This is the benefit of us getting together. Very often you can't listen all the way through. Have you not had this experience where the first time you listen to something, you've fallen asleep by a third of the way through it? The second time you listen to it, you might get 2/3 of the way through, but it might take 3 or 4 listenings for you to actually get the whole way through and have sort of understood that this is normal. It's like a tempering. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, you know, when you make a cake and you've got the whites and the yolks, and you put a little bit of the white into the yolks to lighten up the yolks, and then you put the yolks back into or tempering glass, you know, you heat it up and cool it down and heat it up. We're being tempered. So our consciousness is being raised, and then we purge out whatever dross that meant. It might be a triggering of something emotional. It might be suddenly realizing that we can't eat dairy anymore. It might be realizing that a relationship isn't serving you, not necessarily a romantic relationship, but as your consciousness has raised, you're no longer within a harmonious vibration with people you used to be friendly with or harmonious with, and you have to address that and set boundaries and potentially move on. All of these things are a consequence of ascension. I often also say that in the age of Pisces, you know, Pisces is the little fish swimming in both directions in the ocean of consciousness idea. We incarnated and we tried to push from behind. We tried to carry people. We tried to, you know, there was a lot of sacrifice if you think in terms of, you know, the age of Pisces. It had to be that way. But in the age of Aquarius that we're bridging into, we have to lead from the front. You can't carry somebody into a new consciousness. They have to do the work themselves. They have to choose for themselves. You can give them information. You can be supportive, but really we have to show the way from the front as opposed to pushing from behind. And so I would say, going back to the idea of these astrological things, rather than them having a negative impact on us, I think it's more that's the new energies coming in different ways, triggering new levels of our shifting and helping us, whether it's shifting physically, emotionally, mentally, you know, expanding our consciousness. One of the things that the rhymes feed into is this idea of, rather than thinking very linearly with our left brain, one of the good things about my rhymes, I think, is that they bombard you with imagery that means you've got to think conceptually. And it's almost like it's the rhymes sneak in through your defenses. And I don't mean that in a negative way. There's no control agenda at all. But it's more, you know, in a childlike way, getting you to think differently. And one of the things about expanding your consciousness is, sometimes you need to think linearly, you need to think analytically, and it's perfectly appropriate. And I don't want to denigrate that in any way. But there are other ways of thinking. And conceptual thinking is hugely important when you're getting into psychic information, where you're given feelings, you're given imagery, you're given words, and you've got to sort of interpret it. So all I'm saying is, it's a journey that we've been on for a long time, and having periods of feeling destabilized, feeling overwhelmed, feeling emotional. We have to heal a lot of emotional stuff, not just from this lifetime, but from the past, because we do tend to perpetuate a lot of those things that are unresolved. And I would also say, going back to the volunteer idea, that we are choosing to incarnate into certain difficult circumstances in order to overcome them, in order to heal them, in order to cleanse ourselves of them. And again, because we do that, that sets a template that makes it easier for others to take those journeys. Even, I think I've talked about in the past, I realized when I moved to the area around the Civil War and the Revolutionary War, that there was a lot of traumatized consciousness embedded in the planet. I would call that frozen consciousness. You know how trauma kind of can freeze a chunk of your consciousness. Perhaps as a little kid, you're incredibly spontaneous and energetic, and suddenly something happens where you realize that it's not safe to be that way. Well, that part of you can get shut off or frozen in time. And so a lot of what's happening also with the ascension process is going back and reclaiming parts of ourselves. And this is also where we can help each other. And it's also where, for example, things like being triggered, if you realize being triggered is actually a positive thing, something's triggered you, you think, oh, okay, there's something here for me to clear. And you can, there are ways that you can look into what you're feeling. Anytime you have an overreaction to a circumstance, in terms of, that's what I call being triggered, where whatever happened is this big and your reaction to it is this big, that's an indication that it's something in your consciousness wanting to be healed. So the other thing I would say, just going back to the astrology, I know this is an enormously long answer. I think people misinterpret astrology. Astrology isn't a sentence. It isn't, oh my goodness, you're a Leo, you're doomed to be egotistical. You're a Capricorn, you're doomed to be inflexible. It's not like that. It's not like that at all. Astrology to me is more like a weather report, so that you know what is coming up, and you have a chance to have a greater sense of how to deal with it. So if there's a lot, with a solar flare, I would actually say that's all part of the ascension process. It's all part of the energy shifting. It's all part of the activation. And think, okay, so it's going to destabilize me a little bit. I am a powerful soul. I incarnated here to do this, not only for myself, but to carve a pathway for all the ones who will follow me. And I trust my innate knowing of how best to handle this. I trust my higher consciousness intuition to help me get through this. And I know that each time I experience these things, I have more experience of how to deal with it. I get better at dealing with it. And I tend to find that it's always harder in the beginning, but then you're sort of refining. I would say, at your stage, certainly, Michelle, you're just refining things. And I also think that perception is everything. And if you just shift your perception and think, wow, this is the earth shifting. This is what we've been waiting for. This is evidence. What do they have for the they monitor my brain won't think of it, the resonance of the planet, you know what I mean? The Schumann resonance. The Schumann resonance. And there are periods of time where the Schumann resonance is off the charts and higher than it's ever been before. Well, that to me is just evidence that the vibratory rate of the planet is expanding, and we're expanding with it. But I think sometimes astrology is put forward in such a way that it's black and white. This is who you are, and this is the way it's got to be. And it's not like that. These are just energies, and how you work with those energies and work in mastering those energies is what's more important, in my opinion. So I'm sorry that was such a long answer, but I think it was a really good question, and important information.
It was good information. Thank you very much, Mary Jane.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add or ask or? All right. Well, what I might do is read a rhyme. I had two kind of, I might read one about healing. And see, just intuitively, I'm thinking that might be a good one to read. Are you up for that, or is it? Let me see. Where did I put it? Now, when I read this, just see what imagery comes up for you, if any experiences get, are come up, or and we'll just see. I found this one powerful in terms of getting to the heart of what healing is. And so I'd be interested to get your perceptions as healers. So it's called Freedom's Doorway. Can everybody hear me okay? I think Donna checked in the beginning anyway. Yeah? Okay. When feelings have their way with you and gentle healing sees you through, when truth finally sees the light of day, forgiveness is freedom's doorway. No truth can wipe the slate all clean, but it lights the path from where you've been, standing as witness in solidarity, restoring partial reparative parity. It returns your choice of multiple futures, helping you find and remove your sutures, so you cease recreating your future from your past, immobilized in a full body cast. You see, we modify ourselves and start using crutches, then decades later are stuck in their clutches. Having dumbed ourselves down to acceptable levels, we no longer feel the painful pebbles. Turning to stones and rocks and boulders, we lug around on our rounded shoulders, numb to the ever-escalating signs of our consciousness struggling to realign. Trying to alert us with subtle cues, reawakening the subtle hues of who we are when we're not amended, of who we were before we pretended, before we colluded, trying to belong, ultimately forgetting our own sweet song, before we learned not to speak up, before we stopped filling our cup, before the pervasive programmed dysfunction led us to infer our own malfunction. So stop hoarding emotions, memories, and trauma. Come in from the cold where it's much warmer. The old ways of creating are now of the past, so remove the sling and the plaster cast. There's no need to hobble about on one leg. It's finally safe to be that square peg, safe to reveal the truth within, You were never born in original sin. You're an emissary of love, of life, of creation. So dismantle the destructive ideation. Embrace the power of your inner being. Adjust the focus on what you're seeing. Allow your love to transmute your hurt. Feel it fuel an expansive growth spurt. Feel the universe supporting your climb into an entirely new paradigm. Feel your consciousness shifting and changing, responding to new energy, rearranging how you perceive and process and function at evolution's revolutionary junction. Within this space-time hologram, the waters of consciousness are breaking the dam, flowing with nature as naturally they should, expressing their nature as naturally they would, leaving the struggle of conflict behind, no longer looping in stultifying rewind. In effecting this change, it's important to note, holding old energy won't float your boat. So let go for your own sake and that of the collective. Don't get stuck in an endless retrospective of what's been done and how and by whom. That's the old path of doom and gloom. Register the truth, then see it and believe it. Attest to the impact, then feel it and grieve it. Bring your shadow into the light of day. Listen to and hear what it has to say. Validate its feelings, its fears, its choices. Affirm the knowings of its silent voices. Frozen in time, imprisoned in stasis, send loving kindness to all those places where wounds and pain were born and endured, where trauma hid, untended, uncured. It's finally time to let it all go, to release its hold on your energy's flow, to reclaim your freedom to create at will, devoid of the taste of the past's bitter pill. It's time to wake up and express who you are, to ride a wave that will carry you far, to go all in when you place your bets and watch as the cosmos miraculously resets. So that to me is kind of a description of everything I've been trying to talk about, but all in metaphor. And I do think that healing, well, that sounds trite. Obviously, healing is a fundamental aspect of expanded consciousness and ascension. You know, it's another one of my rhymes talks about putting yourself together like Humpty Dumpty, putting yourself back together, and that's really what we're doing. Does anybody have any other specific experiences of ascension that they'd like to share, just in terms of the process? Barbara, were you wanting to say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to put it together.
All right,
I've
take your time.
Okay, since my early 20s, my goal in life has been to heal trauma. And it's been a long road, but I also think this is part of our soul journey.
Yes.
And we're old souls.
Yes.
And this is part of it. We need to shake that past and be our old soul self to get ready for the ascension.
Yes. Yes. Well, in fact, it's now too. I think we're used to thinking of it in terms of the future, but
Right.
we're in it. We're literally,
Right.
it's culminating right now.
Right.
And I think we're going to be tested also. And like, we've learned all this, we've experimented, and now, you know, can you actually hold the vibration? Can you actually stay balanced? You know, and I think we can. I think we're ready. And I know that we can help others, and not by trying to convince anybody or having arguments with anybody. Like I said, I think the power of the energy itself is extraordinary. But do you feel a sense of freedom in the healing process, or, you know, are you able to be as kind to yourself as I hope you are?
It's been a long journey, but I really feel that I'm there. I had a really bad accident a couple years ago. Nothing seems to matter after that. It's just, I'm at peace. It just let
That's
go
the
of
goal.
everything.
That is absolutely the goal. The other thing is, have you looked at any of the Joe Dispenza videos on YouTube? I'd recommend them to you, because people shifting their consciousness through visualization, through meditation,
Mhm.
and literally shifting out of physical limitation from disease, from accidents.
Right.
It's very inspiring.
Well, I actually should not have healed as much as I have. And I thank the church itself because they had a Reiki group every week working on me. I really don't feel much after breaking 14 bones. I mean, I'm not feeling pain or anything. The doctors predicted I'd be having problems, and I'm not.
Well, that can be the trickiest part, the doctor's predictions. But well, I would just encourage you to contemplate the idea that you can go further than you have imagined possible.
Sure.
Because one of the benefits that I'm so grateful for in terms of psychic stuff is literally having so much communication with the other side and
Right.
realizing how much help there is on the other side. And
Right.
when you're somebody that has helped a lot of people in your life, I realized very early on that all their people then want to help you as in repayment.
Thank you.
And it's an extraordinary thing. So I know that there's a lot of help that you
Bless
can
you.
call upon. Excuse me.
Sure.
And you'd be shocked at all of the things you've done in your life that will ricochet back to you lovingly from
Right.
levels of consciousness where absolutely anything is possible.
Right.
And I think the other thing is that's not even just about you, because if you can do that, again, you're modeling it, you're templating it, you're showing what's possible to everybody around you. And this is what's necessary for us to shift this planet more easily and more quickly. So congratulations to you. I think healing, we can't really compare everybody's experience, but
Right.
one of the wonderful things about healing is just the freedom of moving beyond.
Right.
Not
Absolutely.
defining yourself by what happened or what didn't happen or what you are or you're not. And also, I think there's a great comfort in recognizing that we've all been everything. This is just one expression. That's the whole idea of, the popularity of video games and people choosing an avatar and having an experience through a video game. Well, that's really what we've been doing. One of the fun things that I was told again was, consider what if the reality we're in now is really just a GPS, a 3D GPS of experience. What if you decide, okay, I want to experience this particular time and this particular place, and here's my GPS location in time and space, and I'm going to incarnate there and see what that was like. To me, that is the truth of what we're doing. And I think once you can also be a little bit more lighthearted about, we don't just have one lifetime, we don't just have one experience. And once you realize the truth of that, it's very freeing. The other thing I believe is, I talk about the idea that, an expanded consciousness or jumping back to the future, because it really is, we have to make, I think, a quantum leap back to the future of where we have access to information and knowledge. You don't have to take it secondhand, that we will be accessing that knowledge directly. And honestly, the power of the potential of just imagining what could be possible, but taking it seriously. It's challenging. I find it challenging, But I also have been proving to myself over the years in small ways what is possible and the help that is there. Anybody else have something they'd like to share or ask?
I have a question. I feel a little bit like I've been trying to keep up with people who are in graduate school and I'm still in kindergarten. I've studied Joe Dispenza, read a couple of the books, done a lot of
Yes.
exercises. I was extremely challenged by the breath work, and I just felt like I failed Joe Dispenza. You know, if there was a course called Joe Dispenza, then I didn't make it. I gave up. So I had experiences like that over and over. I'm still hoping and working, but feeling
Well,
defeated.
I think that's apt. Let me tell you, I don't like Joe Dispenza's meditations. They don't work. They don't resonate for me. What I've been talking about, is that a thumbs up over there? Joanna?
I don't like his meditations either. I go elsewhere for breath work and I've tried them many times. They
Yes.
just don't resonate with me either. But
No.
I love his information, but you're not alone.
Thank you.
So it's wonderful that you brought it up, because that's not one validation, that's two validations. What I'm recommending is the testimonials where people talk about how they've shifted their consciousness. I don't think you need to do Joe Dispenza's meditations to do that. It's just proof that it's possible. And for whatever reason, he's coming to it from a scientific perspective, and it works for a lot of people. But no, I don't do his meditations, but I think it's encouraging to see what is possible from those testimonials. I would suggest that what that is saying to me for you is to trust yourself. Trust what works for you. Trust your own guidance. There's a million different ways to do it, and there's no right or wrong way. And equally, it's not a competition. I called my business the Stairway to Even, because I realized it was a stairway, that there were people ahead of me helping me along, and there were people behind me. And even that might seem inappropriate, but I just think it's like saying, your great grandchildren any less because they're coming now as opposed to before. There just isn't. It's not helpful to compare. I would suggest, if you could trust yourself and trust your guidance, things could shift very quickly. Because really, a precursor for any of this, I think I often talk about radical self-love. One of the ways that humanity has kind of been dumbed down is this idea of competition, judging yourself against others, thinking you can't do something, thinking you're stupid, etc. All manner of things. And I think there are certain things in this life that we just have to use discipline to say, I'm not having those thoughts anymore. When one of those thoughts come up, I'm going to notice it. I'm going to say, you're not serving me. Sorry, off you go. And then I'm going to come back to love, come back to the heart. And one of the ways, if you do have little tiny children or babies in your life, that you can just think of that little person and let that love fill your heart, and then let it just bathe you as well. Any way you can to get into a love vibration and send that love to yourself and send acceptance to yourself. I'm a big believer in reparenting ourselves. Parents are human, and we've had a lot of issues with parenting, but that's also the nature of consciousness. The little person, the little 6-month-old, the little 3-year-old, the 7-year-old, they're all there inside us still. And sometimes they're ruling over us a little bit. You know, part of the healing too is to put everything back in its proper place, so that you get to be the steward, you get to be the one choosing, and it's not something subconscious driving you. And when we talked about the ascension process, you know, a lot of those emotional things can be very destabilizing for a period of time, until you clear them. But I absolutely think if you could just say, well, I trust myself, I trust, you know, I'm here for a reason, I trust that. I wouldn't be interested in all of this if I wasn't meant to be doing it, and just see what shifts. And there's a lot of joy to be had in just experimenting with new thoughts, with new imaginings, with just not being limited by, you know, if it's, I think we can pretty much identify thoughts that aren't serving us, and it does. And you know, I'm not saying that I've mastered it, but I think we can. I think with discipline, in that regard, we can. And who knows what your gift is? We all have different gifts. It may be something that you've yet to even discover, Joanna.
Mhm. Very helpful. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. I feel like Teresa would have something interesting to say on this subject. Am I putting you on the spot, Teresa?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on all of what
I
you
know you do. That's why I was hoping you'd share some.
So I think when you start looking at where we're going and all the emotions that are raised by what's going on in the world and with each other, the point of the sweet spot of what I think we all want to try to find is divine neutrality.
Yes.
Where we can love everyone because we are God and we are love and we are perfect alignment, and to stay there. It is not easy, but if one can experience it just for a second, you can keep pushing yourself back into it as you fall out. Because the
Yes.
whole world is trying to get you off of that spot, but that's where we all need to be.
Agree
So if you have some
completely.
thoughts on how what divine neutrality might mean and how to attain it more easily, I think that's part of the ascension process.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. Completely. I think that goes to the idea that we are a finger of God in this realm. We are the creator. It's a different, I think you either believe in God or a higher power as separate from yourself, or you as being an aspect of that higher power. And some people sort of think, well, that's very egotistical to think that you're a part of God. But to me, it just makes sense. If God is everything and God is the ultimate creator, I personally don't like the term God because I think it has too much limiting associations. But I kind of like the idea of the all that is. You know, the all that is the ultimate creator, and we necessarily are part of that. And so I think it's really a responsibility to wake up to that and act upon it. And I do think that's what we're here to do. And that's also where self-doubt and, you know, there's a difference between being egotistical from a broken sense and recognizing the truth. I guess that's kind of why in that rhyme I read, you know, the truth is freeing, even when it's difficult, because it's just the truth. And
Right.
because we know it, we feel it, you know, and having the capacity to know that truth is incredibly empowering.
Yeah. And when you were suggesting that, you know, sometimes people think, oh, you know, I can't possibly be God. That's your small self talking, your small human self, which is bringing in the idea of the ego and comparison and judgment. If you can rise above that into your superconscious self, which is God and which is you, then all that falls away.
Yes. And you're not saying that you're better than anybody else. You're just aligning with with a level of consciousness that allows a different reality. That's kind of what I meant by saying, how did I put it? Reality shifting consciousness as consciousness shifts reality.
And
It's
changing
this.
your perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, that there's a past version of the present, a present version of the present, and a future version of the present. Yeah. Yeah. And really, what I would call the third dimension, you know, it's really been pushed down our throats from the womb, this idea of polarity, good, bad, old, young, you know, black, white, so sick of that polarity. And anytime we can bring that into wholeness and not have our energy split and not get drawn into those things, you know, it's so tempting, of course, but I do think the energy is helping us, you know, going back to what Michelle was saying about the solar flares and the eclipses and what have you. I think those are more like signs that things are changing. And that, you know, the energy is supporting our transformation. One of the other things in my rhymes is the idea that we're what's going to decloak. You know, there's a lot of, I've also been interested in a lot of, you know, ufology and all of that kind of thing, you know, the different races and what reality is out there. But I always got that we are the ones that are going to decloak, you know, because there's a whole other level of beingness hidden inside of us. And I'm not entirely sure what I mean by that. I just know it to be true. I just think that we're going to manifest. Well, I often think of, having been brought up in a Catholic context, you know, you go back to the context, you know, the idea of Jesus saying, you know, those that I can't even remember at this point the proper wording of it, but the idea that those that will come later will do more, will be capable of more than he was. And I believe it. I mean, yes, the rational mind wants to doubt and all of those things, but interestingly, my entire life I have known that the way the world works doesn't work. And I wanted it to work differently. And the idea that in my lifetime we're going to have it work differently is just so exhilarating. And I believe it. I believe that it's going to happen. And I think the more of us who can believe it, the more likely it will happen more quickly. And I always also think of Esther Hicks when she says, you know, one person connected to the source of everything is worth a million people who are not, in terms of the manifestational creative power to shift things. You know, if we choose peace, you know, I can't imagine, apart from people who are unwell, you know, in some capacity, or, you know, completely traumatized, who does not want peace? But we have to be peace to get peace.
But you see, you have a predilection and a belief system that you have just expressed, because there are a lot of people who do not want peace. That's why we don't have peace. If everybody wanted it, we would have it. And so that's where you have to go into that presence of the divine neutrality in order to be able to understand why people are not thinking like you and do not have an outcome that you would like to have. And how do you love them, and how do you still work with them, and what kind of world will you create if they are still in it? And maybe that's where you have to start making choice points and change the timeline.
Yes, I would only say that I think people are very disempowered. Humanity is incredibly disempowered. And so even though I think there are people who do want peace, they yearn for it. They don't realize that they need to actually create it. And I think that's where humanity has been hoodwinked, you know, lied to, manipulated, however you want to put it, to actually act counter to its best interest.
So who is it that does the hoodwinking?
Well, I would say there's a lot of consciousness that has more knowledge than humanity as a whole does, and that for possibly eons has been manipulating a lot of what goes on in this planet. And that a lot of what goes on in this planet is designed to keep the energy down and to basically keep humanity uninformed and perpetuating a reality that they actually don't, the majority don't want. Because it suits certain agendas. I mean, I don't normally like to get into that in a forum like this because, again, it can be triggering.
Yeah. You ascribe to David Icke and his approach?
Not any one person. I think he's been a trailblazer.
Yeah.
I absolutely believe that we have been lied to on almost every potential level. And that there's so much that we do not know, and that there has been another reality behind the scenes that we have not been aware of. I think the control agendas are fairly obvious once you start looking. If you choose to see, you will see control agendas. Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about that more privately with anybody who wants to, but I think the risk of it being triggering, it means it doesn't serve. But I will see, maybe I'll read another rhyme, because, you know, as early as, say, about 1995, I was getting information about all of this, about the fact that there were a lot of control agendas on the planet and that it was going to shift because the energy is shifting. And that's partly why things look like they're getting worse, because it's coming out into the open. It can't be hidden behind the scenes the way it used to be. So I was categorically told that the shift is happening, and it cannot be stopped. But that's not go to, you know, those that have basically had Earth as their playground. Well, I will say, for example, that I think a lot of the, you know, old world, that royalties and things like that saw the writing on the wall in terms of the number of us and the number of them. And I think rather than controlling from an overt means, they took things behind the scenes. And but even those people are only mid-level controllers. I think as above, so below. I think there's control agendas within the planet, and I think there are control agendas beyond the planet. Maybe, how are we going for time? I totally got lost. I might just read one more rhyme and see what you think of this. And that might feed into what you were just saying a little bit. Or
Mary Jane, we have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate it. All right, this one's called, sorry, I'm a bit nasally. This one's called Cosmic Consciousness is the New Black. And that was kind of like, you know, anyway, I think you know what I'm getting at. Cosmic consciousness is the new black, filling the void of ignorance and lack, activating the link to source creator, the cosmic equivalent of an elevator. We've left parts of ourselves on all the floors. We've just forgotten how to access the doors. What may appear as separate parts are aspects of self, alive in our hearts. Consciousness holding the grander truth, soon to manifest irrefutable proof of what's been hidden, distorted, suppressed, of what's inside the hornet's nest. The earth can no longer be held down. The water bearers come to town, reweaving the fabric of time. Frozen consciousness can now sublime, to be reintegrated into the oneness, telling the tale of humanity's undoneness. How we fell and why and from where, how we'll rise and how high if we dare. The more this truth breaks the barrier of belief, the more it will manifest enlivening relief. Humanity is set to claim its freedom from the eons old feudal fiefdom. A phased awakening's been orchestrated, so the threat of chaos can be abated. As we take steps of incremental progress, we serve the collective plan and process. Don't rail against those on a lower rung. Let the process unfold and try to have fun. As you take steps, the others will too, forging a path to move you through this cosmic window of opportunity some still perceive as utter lunacy. Yet history's perspective will celebrate those pioneering few who opened the gate. For now, just focus on driving your car. Let intuition gauge how fast and how far. Be at the ready to take an off-ramp, to follow a detour or stop and encamp. You're forging new territory out of the ethers. That's what you do as cosmic beacons, stabilizing the shift by holding your ground, anchoring the energy and locking it down, while the stars stream their galactic web, so Gaia's grid can go live instead of the facsimile one that's sown the seed for the organic version to finally be freed. Practice attuning your electrical energy to access these broader realms of reality. It takes a certain level of empowerment, but it's a sovereign birthright held in endowment. Exert your will and use your intention. That's how you activate the art of invention. You're the creators. It's for you to choose. Transcend the game of win or lose. It's not as difficult as you might suspect. You're designed to desire, to imagine, to effect future change through the fire within. Fuel that fire and your atoms spin. This is how you act as energy transducers, raising the frequency your field produces, expanding the bandwidth of your reception, and with it, the breadth of your perception. When the fire burns bright in your heart, spontaneously other fires start, burning through the old veils of illusion, clearing the way through all the confusion. 3 cheers for this quiet revolt, dismantling the prison bolt by bolt. The house of cards can't help but fall under your vibrational wrecking ball. As the old structures lose their support, the old guard can have no retort. So don't just wait and hope for change. Imagine its shape, its flavor, its range. You're molding the shift through empowered feeling, transcending the limits of programmed believing. Creativity is the natural human condition. By exerting heart and mind and volition, the outer must reflect your inner focus. There's no real trick or hocus pocus. The magician at work for the greater good, alchemically mastering this neighborhood. So that to me also sums up what's going on. So 8:54. Do we need to leave room for prayers and things, Donna or Alice? Or
I can say a closing prayer, but which is the one that I always say. But I do want to thank you, Mary Jane. I mean, I always love your speeches. I love your poetry. It's so reminiscent to me of Shel Silverstein.
you said that to me. I love it.
Yeah, but it's the Shel Silverstein of the new age. And I actually see your poetry bound in a book and on the shelves. So I think I've manifested it for you. So now you've got to manifest it for yourself. So
I hear you. I hear you.
anyway, it was truly wonderful to be here. And I haven't been at Rays of Healing in months. Something always comes up either on a Monday or a Saturday, and typically on a Saturday I'm teaching, but I don't know what happens on Monday night, but I'm definitely going to get back on track because this has made me feel how much I miss it. So
Well, and I think we might need it more in the coming times, because especially if we're going out in the world endeavoring to be a stabilizing force,
yeah,
you know, I think we can benefit from coming together and you know, gaining that benefit from our collective sharing. I know I felt it tonight. I think it was a very nice sized group. It felt very harmonious and very peaceful,
yeah,
actually.
yeah. And I don't have a calculator here, but there was 14 of us on the screen. So the Christ words are where two or more gathered in my name. The energy obviously increases exponentially. So we are 14 to the 14th power. I don't know how many numbers that translates into, but that gives you the, if anybody does it, or I might do it when I get off and then just put it in the Rays of Healing, website. It's unbelievable how much just us being here together, how in a collective sense, how much value we share. And I guess that reiterates what you had said earlier, what Esther Hicks said. One woman, one person connected to the divine consciousness is worth a million who are not. So
Yes.
because
And I also think we need balanced feminine energy too. Yeah. Anyway.
So, all right, everybody, very gently close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Dear Mother, Father, God, divine, infinite spirit, source of all that is, we thank you for the presence of our teachers. And we thank you especially for the presence of Mary Jane Banks and her knowledge, her wisdom, her understanding, and her willingness to share. And we thank you for all of us who took time out of our busy lives to be here and to lend our energies to the service. And we thank you for the presence of the angels, the archangels, the ascended masters, the Reiki masters, but most especially Master Jesus, Master Buddha, Master Katumi, Saint Francis, Saint Germain, Saint Gabriel, Saint Raphael, Saint Michael, the Divine Feminine, Mary Magdalene, Moses, Metatron, Melchizedek, Mohammed, and Kuan Yin. We thank you for the healing energies of Metatron and his healing angels, and the rising of the vibrational plane that he brings. And we thank you also for the connection of the Elohim, the creator gods. We thank you for all of this in the name of Jesus the Christ and in the name of I am. Amen. Namaste.
Amen.
Namaste.
Thank you all. It was lovely to see you all and the new people that I didn't know too.
That's lovely to see new people, and I'm so happy to see all of you I know.
And also, if anybody wanted any a copy of any of the rhymes or had any follow-up questions, you're welcome to email me. I think Donna is I think you put my email address in the chat, didn't you?
It's there.
Yes, thanks.
Wonderful. Sorry, Donna, I didn't mean to.
Thank you, Teresa. Yes, Teresa reminded me.
All right, wonderful.
It is in
Wonderful.
the chat.
Thank you, Mary Jane.
All right. See you next time,
you.
everybody.
It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Thank you very much.